We thought we had a way forward, and then we didn't, and then we did, and then we didn't, and then we did. So because we have voted on the amendment, and I was going to initially see if the mover and the seconder of the amendment would change the wording for this to come back to S&P, to go back to council, because the advice of democracy was council's the final authority, and we did do that last year when we got into this a similar situation. But of course we've had the vote, and you're just waiting on my casting vote. So to achieve the same outcome and to find a fair way forward, because I'm not prepared as chair on this issue to take responsibility for this vote, I can move a procedural motion that Jude's just going to pop up on the board now.
Excuse me, how can you do a procedural motion when you're in the midst of an incomplete vote? You have to do one or the other, and then you can't have a procedural motion in the middle of a vote.
So I'm not using my casting vote.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so that's
sorry. So that's a result. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So that's the procedural motion that Democracy said I can move to move this issue to try and find a way forward for everyone. So is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Mallett's going to second that, and procedural motions aren't debated on, so as long as everyone's clear on the procedural motion, we'll put that to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands. We're voting on the procedural motion.
Councillors Wilson, Mallett, Green, McPherson, King, Gallagher, Young, Madam Chair.
And those against the procedural motion?
Councillors Tooman, Mayor Hardacre, Councillors Forsyth and Chesterman. That's carried.
Great, thank you. Okay, so thank you, committee. Now we're up to
Excuse me, I have to depart.
Thank you, Councillor Mallet. There's a few leaving. And welcome Emily and Chris. And we're on to item 9, page 116, Trade Waste and Wastewater Bylaw for Public Engagement. So thank you. You can take the report as read. Did you want to present? Oh, we'll take it as read, eh?
Take it as read, yes.
Yep. So questions of the report? It's a very long bylaw.
It's a very important bylaw.
I think there are some that might disagree with you, but I'm sure we'll hear about that. I just have a question actually. On page 116 in your recommendation, under E you've got there a councillor/councillors to be delegated to receive spoken submissions made to the proposed draft trade waste and wastewater bylaw at the drop-in session. Are you proposing not to have written submissions?
We are proposing to do both, so we've got a 2-month consultation period. We will accept written submissions. However, we believe that by having a drop-in session and enabling the members of the public to present verbal submissions will also be the best way forward.
So how, practically on the ground, how will that work?
So the councillor or councillors will be supported by council staff members. They will then record the verbal submission and the conversation, essentially the conversation between the member of public and the councillor at the time.
It's in lieu of a hearing.
So this is all in lieu of a hearing.
So what about the written submissions that you'll receive over the 2-month period? What happens to them?
So council staff will collate them and report back to this committee on now the 19th of July.
So if a member of the public wants to put in a written submission, then they won't get to speak to a committee or a hearing panel?
That's correct.
Okay, so this is a different way of doing that you're recommending doing it. Okay. Right, questions?
I'm just wondering, Chris, should we clarify the dates before we take questions?
Yeah, so councillors, our preference would be to take the minutes to the council meeting, but councillors have already had a discussion about the short time period between this meeting and the council meeting. So if we took the minutes to the March meeting of council, recommendation E, I'd have to substitute the 22nd of March with our standby date of 5th of May. Sorry.
Sorry, just to correct that. So if we take the minutes to the council meeting this week, then the open day will be on the 22nd of March. However, if it is proposed to take the minutes to the following council meeting at the end of March, then our consultation period essentially gets moved by a whole month. So the consultation period will run from 1 April to 30th of May, and the second date for the open session will be on the 5th of May.
Okay, so let's just hold that until you know the outcome of a motion that we may or may not have on the table for this. Okay. So, questions, Your Worship?
I'm just interested in E. Why can't you record what people say verbally? You know, why do you, I suppose I'm just trying to understand here. People come along and they talk about the bylaw. I think it would be fair to say that in terms of the technical aspects, I think that you guys would have the higher position on that, right? So why can't you, in this open day, simply record what is verbally said to you and put that into the written submission?
So
Why do you have to have a councillor there to listen to them?
look, it's my understanding it may carry more weight if one of the elected members was there to listen to the members of the public, and we would record it.
And if it's a drop-in session, that means it's sort of informal and it's not coming in here and speaking, or?
Correct. So we're trying to find a process that works well.
Right.
I think with the people who will be interested in this submission, we think that would work better.
Right, and it's right, isn't it, that you have spoken to the key organisations that will have the most interest in this bylaw, and I see that you have held sessions with them and got their feedback, and they've assisted in the content of this bylaw.
That's correct, yes.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. Thanks.
Councillor McPherson?
Yeah, question to the General Manager. Have you considered significantly extending the consultation period, given we've got a 40 to 50 page bylaw? More seriously, if has anyone run the plain English test over this, or, you know, brevity and succinctness so that people have a chance of understanding it, or is it written only for the technocrats?
Yep. Look, I've had that feedback already. So I think one of the things we can do through the process is to run that ruler over it as well when we come back to council. You know, if there is a better way to write some of the content of it. So we would do that prior to coming back to council.
Did we have our lawyers write it?
It's a part of the bylaw has existed, so the trade waste, there's a bit of repetition from that, but certainly our lawyers have been assisting at various parts, yes.
It does say on page 119.36, bullet point 2, simple language is used.
Several times.
It's not simple at all.
I'm happy to move, but I'm not sure who would be inserted in E. Might be someone who's really interested in the topic, and the other councillors could come by as well.
Yeah.
But I suppose it's to ensure there is at least a dedicated person there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship.
How many
Councillor King.
how many submissions or voice submissions would you expect from this?
We're not expecting a lot.
Very limited.
Yeah.
Limited audience.
I think with the engagement we've done, we're not expecting a lot. So we see a lot of alignment, particularly with the trade waste customers and what we're doing. So we don't expect a lot.
So have you considered, and considering there's going to be very few, have you considered them presenting to a full council? So that people are in tune with exactly what they're saying and what their concerns are?
We considered the two processes. On balance, we thought this would be a better process for people to get their point across. We just, on balance, thought it would be a better process.
better for the submitter,
Better for the submitter.
less intimidating, is that what you think?
Yes, partly, yeah.
More comfortable?
Yep.
Do you not think it's a good idea for everyone around the table to have the opportunity to hear? And that even although people may not
Yeah.
realise they want to hear, how do you get into tune with what's being said if you're not present?
Yeah.
Traditionally, how does this work before this council? Or maybe that's a question for Blair.
Sorry, can you just repeat that question?
Traditionally, before this term, how was submissions like this presented to council?
There was only one approach, which was the very traditional approach, which was generally hearings followed. It was written and people coming through and verbally speaking to council. Now, the Local Government Act, since that time, has changed and provided a far more dynamic and I guess variable process. And our significance and engagement policy has been rewritten to reflect that. And I think this report is reflective of the new approach that council can take.
The danger is, though, people around the table aren't in tune with what the public is saying because they're not listening.
Well, I think that's where you rely on the staff and the staff with their engagement processes, reflecting those various views and bringing those forward in the reports to you. And so the staff are, I guess, always engaging with their stakeholders, and that information is part of the information they're bringing to the table as part of the reports and part of the bylaw. So in many ways, the new consultation processes are far more reflective of what we're doing on a day-to-day basis, which is listening, talking, engaging, and reflecting that engagement into what we bring to the table here and in our daily work. So I think it's actually a better process, Councillor.
So does the General Manager believe that council's going to get a better picture of what submitters are saying by not being present and reading a report afterwards in your specific field in this area on this subject?
Yep, I think the issues will be, if there are any raised, will be quite technical in nature. So so any written submissions will come to council, and we're charged with writing an accurate report of what submitters say in the open day, if any, turn up. So our obligation is to write a factual report of what they're saying and bring that to council. So without analysis, but just to report to council the decision makers of what was said at that open day.
So what you're saying is you're agreeing with Blair that it's a better process by us not listening, by us reading the report, than hearing directly what the public have to say?
For this particular one, that was our view.
Thank you.
Councillor McPherson, I've still got you on here. No, you've had questions.
Don't mind.
Any further questions?
So I've moved.
Yes, I know. Thank you, Your Worship. I'm happy to second this one. So we've got a motion, staff recommendation on page 116, although what are we doing about E? For a council or a councillor's name to be inserted?
Yeah. So we'd certainly like a nomination.
Oh, Councillor Toomans
That would be
graciously
fantastic.
put up his hand.
Could I ask that you advise us where and when and the time, so that if anyone else wants to come along, because we get notified of all open days, and sometimes councillors want to come, others don't.
Yep, we would
But we do
certainly
attend
that.
a lot of open days.
So, Your Worship, you're happy to include Councillor Tooman in that?
Yes, fine.
All right?
I don't need to speak to it.
No, okay.
So we just need to be clear on the date.
Oh, and
Chair.
The dates in E?
Yep, so it's my understanding, what I was listening to before, it would,
They're just going to let us know where and what times. I've asked. Can I just check in relation to that, because we got an email from the Democracy Manager that said that there may be some late reports in relation to certain matters from this committee that would come through on Thursday. Is this one of them?
This was the matter.
To
Your
get
Worship.
going kind of thing?
This was the matter.
Unless anyone has any objection, maybe this one could come through, otherwise it's going to be a month delay.
that would be our preference.
Because this then goes out, and then at least then you know, we've got a decent amount of time for people to put in what they want to
So-
put in.
So we wouldn't normally include something like that in a resolution.
No, I'm just getting clarity on the dates. We don't need to change
Yeah.
the dates if it comes on Thursday. Has anyone got any problem with that? I don't.
This was the only matter, Your Worship, that was,
So I think everyone's pretty okay about it coming through on Thursday, and then it gets it out for the consultation, and then you can
Yep.
come back. Yeah, okay.
can I just check, Chris, the 5th of July, I understood there was only the 19th of July.
9th to 19th.
Yes, it does need to be, that way,
So F is changed to the 19th of July,
but would leave the 22nd of March in E.
Strategy and Policy Committee meeting, yeah.
Yep.
For deliberation and adoption, okay. All right, so that's the motion on the table. Is there any debate? Then no debate. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Thank you. That's carried. Right, thank you very much. Thanks, Chris and Emily. We're nearly there, committee, we're nearly there. Item 10, page 166, this is the Regional Strategic Roundup Report. And Chris is still in the hot seat? No, he's out of here.
So-
Gone, he's gone, Burger.
So through the chair, I'm just happy to possibly just take questions on this report as opposed to working my way through it. So
I just have one question, if I can jump ahead of the committee members. Just on page 167 in the mayoral forum work streams, and this may be a question Her Worship couldn't help with, do we have a kind of a lie of the land of where the other councils are sitting in regards, I know it's early days, in regards to their thoughts on the Easter trading? Are they happy to collaborate to one policy?
No
We don't know.
discussion.
No discussion.
No
okay.
one's raised it.
Thank you.
I can probably just add that that particular bylaw is the intention of the LAS workstream within the mayoral forum to use it as the first bylaw that we try to collaborate regionally with. So in other words, sharing advice, templates, approach, draft, but obviously allow each council to populate their own circumstances, but have a standardised approach. And
Oh, so it's a standardised approach of the physical document, not of the policy direction?
yes. So each council still would be able to make their own determination, but if there was to be a bylaw of each council that we've got a consistent thought, wording, approach, advice, and so you can just then populate it with your own local circumstances.
Okay. Are we going to move to, I know we're all different and there's an awful lot of politicians in the middle of all of that, but are we going to get to a point where a region has a bylaw? I would have thought something like this would have been a fairly easy one to kickstart that kind of collaborative work.
And this could well be that. We have yet to have, that workstream's yet to have discussions on whether that's a possibility. And I guess until the bill
Early
becomes
days.
law.
Yeah.
But what I can say is that the workstream headed up by the Chief Executive of South Waikato District, Craig Hobbs, is looking at both policy and bylaws around, first of all, culling policies across the region, and approximately 50% of all council policies across the region have been culled, including our own. And secondly, that workstream is starting to now look into bylaws to achieve over time, ideally either consistent bylaws, single bylaws, or bylaws that have the same front end but just the back end is populated with the local circumstances. So trying to make it easier for people to engage with councils that there is just one type of bylaw or policy rule, but possibly where appropriate local circumstances are populated.
Okay, thank
It's
you.
a long project.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Young.
Just one question. Number 13, strategic waters. It mentioned about the healthy river plan and it's likely to be significant impact. So can I have more information on that part?
Chris can talk to that one.
So, councillors, I think we have a briefing coming up in March, so it's quite a complex issue, but we have a scheduled briefing where we're bringing along some people to talk to you about the whole Healthy Rivers project and potential impacts on council.
Can you say
So
what sort of impact?
So in general, it's about enhancing the quality of the Waikato River. So it's got impacts on everybody who uses the river, particularly us as an urban centre that takes our water out of the river and puts our waste into the river. So there's potential, there's big impacts for all river users.
We'll be having a workshop in March, right?
Yes.
Councillor Gallagher.
I just want to confirm that the future-proof and Waikato plan, that's going through to open workshop, is it?
There's going to be, again, at the same briefing that Chris Allen referred to, there's also going to be those two matters discussed in March.
And I note at the Waikato plan meeting yesterday, your representative, the Mayor, correctly took the initiative to insist that where we're at on the Waikato plan actually needs to be referred back to the constituent councils for their ongoing authority. You know, obviously we are collectively spending a bit of money on this, and there are some sort of significant high-level things in there, and just making sure that as we move forward, I think it's really important that, you know, your representative, in this case the Mayor's, we've got the mandate to basically carry on, and I certainly, I look forward to that discussion, and also, if we can, relating it to the UNISAR report around the transport objectives and goals, because obviously they relate, and other things. Okay, so I've nothing further to add at that stage. Just perhaps that, Madam Chair, we note maybe those discussions are going to be workshopped anyway, just as a minute note, obviously.
Great, thank you.
I'm happy to move the report.
Thank you, Your Worship. Is there a seconder for the report?
I'll second, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Gallagher. Are there any further questions? There being none. Councillor Tooman, did you pause there for a moment? Okay, he didn't. That's been moved by Her Worship and seconded by Councillor Gallagher. Is there any debate? No debate. So all those in favour say aye. Are there any against? No, that's carried. Thank you. Right, item 11. This is the NZTA Vehicle Dimensions and Mass Rule submission, and there was some healthy debate over email on this one. Chris?
Yep. So just a quick summary. So there's been a request for this submission to come to committee prior to lodging. So we have an extension of time until tomorrow, so we can comply with that. Look, I believe that the matters raised in the discussion document that we're submitting on are relatively minor, but I just want to emphasise the approach that staff have taken has been conservative in terms of the risk profile for Hamilton, i.e. We're generally not supporting minor changes to increase mass, not supporting changes to width in order to take a conservative approach. But the issue of high productivity motor vehicles has been before Council many times before over the last 4 years. And now the processes are locked into law and the transport rules into this particular rule. For councillors not involved in those previous discussions, it is a complex issue, and I've tried to set up a bit of a background information of the process that followed and an attachment at the back, attachment 2, which describes the difference between HPMVs and 50 max. So as I said, the submission is generally not supporting any increases to weights. They're quite minor increases proposed, but they are still increases to weights. I think our submission is very consistent with other local authorities at this point in time. There's one just particular matter that I did want to highlight, and it's the matter in starting on paragraph 25. So we have supported one increase in weight or loading on trucks. So on the surface of it, that sounds as though it's an increase, but there is rationale for us supporting it. So at the moment, a 44-tonne truck is the standard sort of maximum legal weight of a Class 1 truck. The proposal is to take that to 45 tonnes, but only if the vehicle has an extra axle, and the extra axle will distribute the loads, so there's less impact on our pavements. That proposal is linked up with another proposal in the discussion document, which is to reduce the weighing tolerance from 1.5 tonnes to 0.5 tonnes. So what that means is at the moment, any vehicle that's just a standard vehicle can load up to 44 tonnes, but there's a tolerance, a bit like the speed limit tolerance. They can actually get away with 44 plus 1.5, which is 44.5. So those loads on those trucks without the extra axle cause a lot more damage than the proposal that we're looking in front of us is to take up the loads to 45 tonnes, provided you have the extra axle and less damage to our pavement, and a tolerance of only half a tonne. So you would get the same weight, potential weight of 45 tonne plus the tolerance is 45.5, but with the better axle configuration. So we've supported both of those two things, to go to 45 tonne and the linkage, and supporting bringing the tolerance down to half a tonne. I am aware that others are making a submission to bring the tolerance down to 0. So we've just supported the proposal, but there are some others that are putting in their submission to bring the weighing tolerance down to 0. So that's one I just thought needed a little bit of explanation. I'm happy to take any questions on the submission.
Thank you, Chris. Councillor
Just a
McPherson.
question on that last point.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you have supported 0 tolerance if you're happy with a better distribution of weight across the axles that you've talked about? Why any tolerance at all, given especially that other councils seem to have come up with that outcome?
I think, to be honest, at the time we were responding to the proposals put in front of us, and the proposal was to take it down to 1.5 to 0.5. The delay to come to this meeting has probably highlighted that other people have taken a slightly different approach to just go a little bit further.
So you could easily do that and still be consistent?
We could still take that position and be consistent. It would be our view, and that's entirely appropriate.
Thanks.
Any further questions?
Maybe a comment. Would it be fair to say, Chris, that a load of lambs could easily pick up 2 tonne when it rained? So therefore there must be a bit of a tolerance built in to you get a load of 500 sheep on board a rig, and you get a downpour of rain, they can easily pick up 2 tonne.
Yeah, I think that the tolerance, my understanding, is normally being built around the accuracy of the weighing equipment, but I have understood that the equipment and the technology is getting better for weighing, and so that was part of the reason for bringing the tolerance down. Councillor Tooman, I hadn't really thought of the sheep example.
That was quite random, but are you saying that when the sheep are wet, there's an extra 2 tonne on that truck?
Yeah, easy.
That's a random fact.
Well,
I believe it.
I'm told in New Zealand we cover them so they don't get wet.
Raincoats.
But I think your point, Councillor Tooman, is it appropriate to have a tolerance for just the unknowns? Is your point.
Out of the box. Clever.
So, and that would be the rationale
with
for
the
having our tolerance.
He is so wasted here.
He is.
You should have them back out on the beach.
Yeah. Councillor McPherson?
In here, it's all technicalities about weights and
That's
tolerances and wet sheep and so forth. Where's the stuff about safety for other road users on the open road that's also been highlighted as an issue with this move to HRMV vehicles? I say the R because it stands for high risk motor vehicles. Yeah, so our submission is not supporting the increase in dimensions because of our urban environment, and we don't think the evidence is there to allow us to make a judgment whether it would be safe to do that or not. I am aware, Councillor, there are lots of reports floating around now and looking at the post-implementation of HPMV and looking at is it delivering the benefits that it was sold on in terms of safety. And so it's a bit, the stuff I've read says it's a bit too early to have a decent sample size to understand. Deaths yet to be able to tell whether they're caused by this or not.
We haven't had enough time to understand the accident trends and compare them sort of to pre-HPMV.
Yeah, the point I'm making is not gainsaying anything you've said, but if you're arguing against the new rules, which you are to a certain extent in here, why would you not look at that other issue? You know, why Hamilton residents also travel on the open road in the area, and our roads surrounding Hamilton are widely acknowledged as amongst the most dangerous in terms of car versus truck conflict and so forth. Why would it not be a good point for us to comment on that area as well about the potential risks?
Yeah, the discussion document, what I've read, is accompanied by some safety analysis, which is, I think from memory, is indicating that the trends are looking positive, but it's still quite early to make that analysis.
Does it not also actually state in some of the background or information in the report that there is an increased risk to other road users? It doesn't quantify it, but
I think there's upsides and downsides, and one of the things they quote, if you look across the whole freight task, there'll be less trucks on the road to carry the same freight. So when you take that into account, that can balance the risks, I guess, of a heavier vehicle and the stopping time. You've got to balance that up against the fleet improvements as well. So these.
Do you genuinely believe there'd be less trucks on the road, or would there not just be more heavier trucks?
No, clearly there will be less trucks, but I think you've got to, the freight task is increasing significantly.
Much more than the volume would reduce.
Yeah, so there would be more trucks on the road, but there'll be less trucks than if we didn't have HPMVs. But I think the discussion documents I've seen are right back to rail as well, in terms of, HPMVs are encouraging, freight on roads and not on rail, and so that comes into the safety equation as well. So it's a multi-headed sort of analysis on safety, but there are people looking at that.
Doesn't the report itself from the MOT or NZTA or whichever alphabet soup wrote it, talk about an increased risk to other users? I dig out the reference that I saw had passed on to me.
Yeah, I think that is...
At one point at least.
Yeah, so the discussion document has got some commentary on it. I think that's what I mean by we've taken the conservative approach of not not supporting anything that increases the risk profile at this time.
And the productivity, the value increase that's been, I've seen a figure of $93 million over 30 years assessed as the likely productivity or an assessed productivity increase. Is that a figure that you've seen or staff have worked on?
Yeah, look, there's certainly quite a significant report out that's looking at the whole benefit side and the cost side. And there's a lot of analysis on the productivity, and from memory, it's getting the productivity gains.
So 93 million, you'd regard that as a productivity gain over 30 years?
And look, I'm not sort of 100% on the detail of that. We've looked at this submission in the context not of the rules that are in place now. We've looked at it in the context of the changes that they're looking to make to the rules. Clearly there's another piece of work going on where people are monitoring the productivity gains, the benefits and costs of the stuff that's already in place. But this submission is just really looking at the narrow issues that they're consulting on now, which is changes to the
So what's happening now is sort of an incremental creep. They bring in the bare bones new rule, and they add a little bit, and they add a little bit. Is that not what's happening?
Well, once again, I guess that's why we've, in some of these areas, taken that approach of not supporting the changes until there's more evidence to suggest that it can be supported. That's part of the approach that we've taken.
And have you seen the HCC figures that assess the cost of a road death at a tad under $3 million per person?
Look, I'm aware that's the order of cost that's associated with road deaths, yeah.
So if we're talking about a $93 million productivity increase over 30 years, then one extra road death per year caused by higher productivity motor vehicles would wipe that 93?
Wouldn't wipe that 93, but you're assuming that there will be an increased safety cost. So the theory is a reduced safety cost because...
but there's no evidence of that, is there?
Well, they're starting to, that's what I say, they're starting to gather that evidence. They've only got a 2-year data set at the moment, so normally, 5 years of that crash history starts giving you some proper trends.
5 years, and we've had the new rule for how long? A year and a half?
2010, in fact, yeah. So they came in, so I think there's a report that's looked at the period 2011 to 13 was the one that I was looking at.
And have any of the road deaths during that period been a result or caused by high productivity motor vehicles?
There's certainly been, from I'm recollecting a very detailed report I read, but there's certainly been, from memory, one, maybe two high productivity motor vehicles involved in a fatality. I don't know the details.
There's TA assessment, isn't there, that approximately 30% of vehicles, or just over, of truck versus car crashes are the fault of the trucks. It's not saying that all of them are, it's saying about
yep. But if you bring it back to the high productivity motor vehicle, what's the incremental of the high productivity motor vehicle over your normal freight task?
So it's interesting that staff didn't see fit, though, to include any of that aspect in their arguments here.
Probably that's reflective of us taking the conservative approach, remembering this submission is not about debating the rules that introduced HPMVs or 50 max. This is about small efficiency changes, or promoted as efficiency changes to the existing rules. So it's not the substantive debate about whether 50 max or HPMVs should be there. They're already there. This is just about small changes to the rule in terms of making it administratively better, and in there are minor changes to widths and mass.
So just looking at the city, there's a map on page 191, the routes through the city, I should say, that's got it's such small writing, I can't, indistinct, I can't actually read the legend, but I suspect that the route along the old State Highway 1 and over Whitiora Bridge and out to 5 Crossroads, and there's the green route on page 191.
So could I just explain the 3 maps that are there, page 191, the 3 maps are out of our bylaw. So the map that you're looking at is council's bylaw that deals with through trucks in the city, so it's nothing to do with HPMVs or 50 max. It is where council has said through its bylaw, if you've got no business in Hamilton and you need to pass through Hamilton, we want you on these routes. So that's what the first map is for. If you turn over to the second map.
Is that page 15?
That's page 191 of the agenda, or page 13.
191 is the first map with that.
Yeah, so that's our through truck bylaw that we've had for a long time.
And what's the red and what's the green? Because that text is impossible to read.
Yeah.
Okay,
for that. So if you go to map 2, is more associated with, so that's on page 192 or 14. So what council decided a few years ago was that in terms of the HPMVs, that we were okay for, because they're issued by permit, so there's specific permits issued for them. We were happy to issue permits provided they were trucks that were in our industrial zones where the pavements are strong and there's a real need, to drive economic productivity. So you can see the pink zones in there are really picking up our western employment belt there and Ruakura. So we will issue permits for trucks whose destination is those routes to serve our industry and nowhere else. So the third map is on page 193. It's the 50 max have a bit more of a blanket permit in New Zealand, but you can specify, and it's generally related to structures where you don't want those trucks to be. So once again, I apologise, you can't see the detail, but generally they're our river bridges and important structures. You know, we've got some historic bridges where we don't want, or the bridges can't take the heavier trucks. So they are, so HPMV trucks are not allowed to go on those. So what council decided to do was to take the 50 max and the HPM views that we had as a city and reinforce those views by putting them in their bylaw as well. So we've got a double sort of process.
So looking at map B on page 192,
Yeah.
are you saying that without a shadow of a doubt, all of those roads and structures on them and corners and so forth can handle a HPMV truck?
Yeah, so that's the work that we
including
did.
the rural road going out the back of Lake Rotokari on the boundary? Is it X or B? I can't remember. I'm not sure which one it is.
So
I
we've
would like to meet a truck on X or B,
we've
of any sort.
yeah. So remembering that the HPMV trucks are look, they're very similar to just normal trucks. They are a bit longer, but they're specially designed trucks with better turning circles. And different axle configurations to spread the weight. So, you know, if a 44-tonne truck was going to be on there, it'd probably be the same as a HPMV truck. So, but look, council has made those decisions, and those are the areas that we've decided already that HPMVs can be on. And look, we in the 2 years or so that we've been operating this, we haven't had any observed issues. We look at pavements, we've seen no noticeable pavement deterioration, and to be fair, that would be a long-term issue and you might not see that come out immediately, but we've had no increased complaints in the 2 years that we've been issuing permits.
Can I just ask whether rifle range roads being used at all by trucks? So I've certainly received continued complaints, but I don't know whether they're HPMV.
Yeah, I have too.
Yeah, so Rifle Range Road has been a perennial for us in terms of residents complaining about that. We have something in our minor safety works program to make some arrangements there to encourage trucks to use the road hierarchy, and that road hierarchy is if you can be on the state highway and not on local roads. If you can't be on a state highway, go to our major arterials. Can't be on our major arterials, go to the minor arterials. So
I just noticed you've got a cul-de-sac going off Rifle Range Road that's approved for HPMV vehicles, the one that goes into where the south of the car museum is, but Rifle Range Road itself is not approved, so one wonders how they would get in there short of a helicopter lifting them in.
I think they, look, Dawn's sitting behind me, but I think they were probably based on real applications of where trucks were trying to get to, and we worked through specific routes, didn't we, Dawn, for particular people and how they would get into the locations that they wanted to? But I just don't recall
maybe it is an approved route, but on this map I can't see it.
Yeah. So sorry, I hadn't expected that we'd be debating where they could go. I was just trying to put the maps there to illustrate. I was just trying to put the maps in there to illustrate that we have carefully considered this, and that we have had big bylaw discussions, and we've put it into our bylaw as a protection as well.
Okay. Oh, well, look, I am pleased that there's some pushback in the latest version of the submission on this. But I think it's lacking in the whole safety area, and I think that we've got a responsibility as council, unless we don't agree with the safety arguments, to also articulate them as well as the technical arguments we articulate.
I'm more than happy to add, councillor, that and it would probably reflect our previous position that safety is something that we're interested in, and would wish to see it monitored over time and reported in terms of the safety outcomes of HPMV. So I'm more than happy to reinforce that in our submission, and probably appropriate to do that, and would fit alongside our position on we've taken on the widths and the extra loading.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, councillor. The Deputy Mayor has indicated...
Yeah, I'd like
he
to
will-
signal I'm prepared to move the recommendations with the addition that councillor McPherson present the submissions at an appropriate hearing.
With G,
That'll horrify
with G and
staff.
Alan, yeah.
And the
With
investigation.
permission to make his own personal views available.
So you serious about that?
Absolutely.
The Deputy Mayor serious about that, councillor McPherson? Are you going to take...
Oh, I've moved it.
up on that?
Is there a second?
Well, you have moved it.
Will it be in Wellington? I'd
So-
get a
In
free
Wellington.
trip out of it.
So our
It's usually...
intent, I think, was not to present, I'm not sure there's even an opportunity to present.
But don't we have a policy to always speak to submissions?
We always say that we would like to if we can.
Just keep it in reserve, keep your options
Okay,
open.
so
Yeah, so
Keep it in
I
reserve.
think this is a process to make comments on a discussion document. They will turn that into a
Okay.
rule, and the rule will come out for public consultation. So that's probably the opportunity. So I'm not sure there's an opportunity for hearings on this. This is just our initial
Alright.
feedback on a discussion
Okay.
We
document.
should inquire about
Okay.
that. Councillor
Should leave that
Chester
bit
has
out
got a very
now,
good idea
Deputy
there.
Mayor. Okay, so that's been moved by the Deputy Mayor. Is there a seconder? And that's the staff recommendation on page 173. Councillor Gallagher, did you have a question?
What's the motion? I mean, it's just, I'm surprised, because normally, now the reason I ask is I'm stunned that normally when the Deputy Mayor of this city moves something, there's a competition as to who will attach themselves to him and second it.
Well, we haven't got that yet.
Well, just for clarity over the resolution, is that we add to the submission that in the event that submissions, in the event that councils have an opportunity
To speak to the
to
submission.
present
Oh, yeah.
submissions, that councillor McPherson is appointed to do that.
I'll second that.
There you
And
go.
that acknowledges as the Deputy Mayor very sincerely, Councillor McPherson, significant background in this area and even, don't always have to, I know Chris wouldn't always agree with everything Dave says, but it's acknowledged that Councillor McPherson has a huge background in this area.
Okay.
Even in my previous parliamentary days, I would defer to Councillor McPherson in a lot of these areas, acknowledge his expertise.
And I
Right.
do recall councillor McPherson, when he was chairman of the Transport Committee, raising these issues at least 5 or 6 years ago, Chris.
Yeah.
I was going to say 5 or 6 times in a meeting. Okay, so that, Deputy Mayor, as the mover, did you wish to speak to that? Does anybody wish to speak to that?
So what exactly
So it's
is
the
the,
staff
is the motion?
recommendation on page 173.
Okay.
A, B, C, D, E, and an F.
And the
That-
F was
and-
that councillor McPherson present council submission if it is appropriate.
Or if the opportunity comes up.
Yeah. If
Yeah,
it comes up.
if the
That's all.
opportunity comes
That's
up.
fine.
Okay. All right, so that's been moved and seconded. Is anyone wishing to debate on that?
Are we going to get the motion up? Because it's not what's in the report.
Okay. Yeah. Delete.
Would you like to be
It's because we're so high tech, eh?
Would you like to be an alternate?
No.
Here we go.
Yeah, 2 minutes.
Yeah.
No, I'm happy to.
So is that okay?
That's it, excellent.
Yep. Okay,
Someone who's got their head around the issues.
that's our Deputy Mayor and Councillor Gallagher, yeah. Right, we'll put that motion.
Capital T under F,
Where? Oh, that.
outrageous.
She's disagreeing with you. Okay, and we'll put that, capital T, there we go, nice and tidy. We'll put that motion to the vote. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? That's carried. Thank you. Thanks, Chris.
And informally, if Dave couldn't do it, then I'd suggest Leo would be the next one. No, seriously. No, it's just this is
Yeah.
horses for courses, folks, and it's
Yeah.
these two guys in their different ways have got background in that area. That's
Yeah,
acknowledged.
thank you. Right, item number 12, page 194, and this is consideration and approval of 3 HCC externals. And we've got Deborah and Luke in front of us, and one of these is a retrospective approval due to the fact that over the Christmas period we had no meeting before the 9th of February when the submission was due.
That's correct, thank you, Madam Chair. Elected members will be aware that there's a reasonable amount of work going on at the central government level about reforming the resource management system in New Zealand. It's been on the agenda for some time, starting back from about 2010. We had amendments to the RMA come through in 2009 and further amendments in 2013. The 3 submissions that are attached to the report address 3 related but separate reform projects that are being undertaken by central government. The first is the first attachment relates to a joint project between the Ministry for the Environment and the Ministry for Business Innovation and Employment, which is to develop a national policy statement relating to urban development. A national policy statement is an instrument provided for under the Resource Management Act and would compel councils, including this council, should it go through, to have specific regard for matters contained in that MPS should it go through in relation to urban development. Second...
Can I just let you know, Chair, I've got a speaking engagement, so I have to go.
Thank you, your worship.
The second submission is in relation to an inquiry that's been launched by the Productivity Commission of New Zealand. You'll be aware that they've done 2 recent inquiries touching on urban planning. One was about affordable housing in, I think, in 2012, and then there was a second one called Land for Housing that this council made submissions on, and that's about an issues paper called Better Urban Planning. And then the last submission is in relation to the actual proposed amendments to the Resource Management Act, the Resource Legislation Amendment Bill, which was tabled in Parliament in November last year, and the submissions address those 3 related but distinct forms, and I'm happy to take any questions on those, as is Deborah.
Right, thank you. Right, questions? Councillor King.
On page 197.
Yes.
2.8. Hamilton does not have vast greenfields land resources at its disposal. What does that mean?
What that means is that the majority of our land in the city is already zoned, essentially. There's very little, there's only a couple of areas that are future urban. One's in Temple View, there's another part of Rotokauri. And I wrote this particular submission. What I mean by that is that compared to other metropolitan areas, e.g. Auckland or Dunedin, or even to some extent Tauranga, there's large areas of land that is non-urban. It's
Still rural.
Still rural. So it's sitting there as effectively as a future resource for housing and for employment. But Hamilton is unique compared to other metros that we're a very small territorial authority by land area.
So the greenfield means land that's
currently non-urban and
It's
could be
zoned.
used. No,
No, it's not so.
a greenfield land can mean both land that is zoned or unzoned.
So I thought we had large amount of land that was greenfields. So I thought we had large amounts of greenfield land.
I think, Councillor King, we have large amounts of greenfields lands, but we don't have a big rural area that we look after the way that a number of the larger metropolitan areas do. Dunedin has got acres of Africa for rural land. So that's the difference. We actually don't have much of that.
I think it'd be helpful, I think terminology, greenfields sort of means land available open. I think what you want to do is perhaps use the word in terms of rural.
So we could add that to this.
Yeah, it's just like if you look at Dunedin, Christchurch, most local authorities, even Auckland actually has, significant zoned rural.
Yeah.
And we don't want to interrupt Councillor King. 2.8, when we talk about future-proof and all of that, what we're doing, that to me is 2.8, by the way, is a very critical sentence, actually, in terms of the situation we now find ourselves in.
So perhaps we could edit that second sentence at 2.8. Hamilton does not have vast land resources for future urban development at its disposal. Would that be a better?
I think, yeah, as long as you capture, because if you look at most other local authorities, I think it's probably except Tauranga, most other local authorities do have a significant mix.
That's correct.
And probably Christchurch, Dunedin would be two. Just throwaway examples would be significant where while they're urban based, they have a significant rural, genuine rural. Yeah.
I guess where I'm heading is I understand we've got 30 years of land available for subdivision once we can get our infrastructure in the ground.
That's within that time frame. I agree with that.
So isn't the implication that we haven't got enough land when in fact we've got 30 years supply? Or am I off track? I mean, if I was reading that, if I was in Wellington, I was reading that, I would think they haven't got a vast amount of land to supply sections. But I understand we've got 30 years of land to provide sections.
That's under the current growth scenarios. I mean, if that change, if there's an uptake in additional...
No, we can only work under the current, or what we know now. I'm just asking, am I misunderstanding it, or...
No,
I mean, we've got 30 years.
Yeah,
We're saying we haven't got much greenfields land.
My view is, yep, we have close 30 years, say, but that's still by other metros. It's less than other metros. I'd stand by the statement that we don't have vast resources at its disposal for beyond that time frame. So I'm happy to add that clarifier, but as I say, compared to other large metros,
would it be helpful to put that time frame in there then?
We could add that time frame.
Past 30 years. Yeah.
Did you wrote this?
Yes.
Did you see my comments?
Yes, and the text in here indicates the highlighted text is the areas that have been amended to reflect your comments. I've seen your queries that you sent through on the 5th of February, or the day before that, and the edits have been. I didn't do the edits, but the edits have been. I've been told have been to take into account the comments that you've made.
Do you feel you reflected my comments?
As I said, I didn't make the edits. I made the primary, the draft submission that went out. This here, the edits in here, I didn't make those edits. Those edits were made by Mark Brome, taken into account, and he assures me that they've been taken into account.
Thank you.
Councillor Young?
Yep, I just have something, maybe it's minor or just something same. 2.3 there, say Hamilton is a growth city and a major metropolitan centre in New Zealand. But while on 2.8, and the smallest Metropolitan Centre in New Zealand.
Yeah.
So is it major, the smallest? Or-
Sorry, that 2.8 talks about third smallest inland area. So what I can help would be useful in terms of is a major metropolitan centre in terms of population, and I'm happy to add that clarification.
That's right. Otherwise, it's major and the smallest. Seems,
Yeah.
seems not right. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Are there any further questions on any of the submissions there? No?
I'll move.
Moved by the Deputy Mayor. I have a seconder for that.
Seconded by Councillor Gallagher.
Seconded by Councillor Young. Deputy Mayor, would you like to speak on the item?
Look, I think it's probably, part of this just triggers me to do the future-proof chat. But, like, for example, it's kind of significant that we're, and I'm not being critical of, say, the Horotū Inland Port development at all, but it's significant that we're a local authority, we'd be the only local authority where something like that, more, I think Tauranga might be an exception, but that's going to happen literally across the road from us. A huge, but it's not in our patch of the woods. So what I'm wanting, but I guess it's the future. So I think this is actually a good submission because actually it's not even just about actually housing. It is about the situation where, in fact, you've got a major industrial, major port development happening not now neck of the woods. And I'm not being critical because good on Waikato District, that's their job, that's their patch. But I think it's kind of getting across that there's, whereas most local authorities, I think probably except Tauranga, more or less have a much larger footprint for all of this stuff. So Dunedin, Christchurch, Palmerston North, etc., etc. So I think, to me, this submission is capturing that reality, and I'm really looking forward to that future-proof chat. We are, let us say that I think we are incredibly intertwined with our neighbouring local authority on this stuff.
Nelson and Tasman would be another example, Councillor. Nelson and Tasman districts.
Yeah.
Nelson City, Tasman and
Right. No, that's a good example too. Yes, yes. Thank you.
Can I just clarify, because we've, the committee members have requested some changes and on that first one, and the first one's the retrospective submission.
Yes.
And I can't see, Luke, in the submission, normally under the old process, we used to have a statement at the bottom of the letter that said, subject to council approval. So we're going to need to add, are we to say C, that we contact the agency and inform them of those changes that council has made? We used to have it, we used to always have it at the bottom, didn't we, that the submission was subject to and then the policy.
Recommendation 9C, that the Ministry for the Environment be advised of any changes made to submission 456, which is the one we've been talking about.
Oh, so that's the retrospective.
That's correct.
So
yeah.
it is in there.
It is in there. The recommendation
Okay,
provides
great.
for any changes made to submission at the 23rd of February
great.
Stretching Policy Committee meeting.
Thank you, thank you. Right, so any further speakers? No?
Is it too late on submission draft, the resource legislation amendment bill to make a change to that? On page, starting on page 203.
No, it wouldn't be.
My only suggestion, if everybody was happy, my intention was Hamilton recommends it, sorry.
What page?
The highlight, on page 204,
Yeah.
2.1.8. My intention was Hamilton City Council recommends that central government provides a pool of funding interest-free with repayments through development levies. It wasn't about having a pool of money that we can access money as much as we like. It was about an interest-free, it was about covering the costs during that time at no cost to council.
We could certainly make that amendment if the rest of the committee was.
Deputy Mayor, are you happy to have that change included? Councillor Young, you're happy as seconder? Yep. So that can be, if that can be captured as well, please.
Thank you.
It's like the social credit policy of years ago.
No, is it?
How do you join up?
Okay, so,
Deputy Mayor's always very helpful.
isn't he?
Yeah.
So that's been moved and seconded. We've had some debate. All those in favour? Aye. Are there any against? That's carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, item 13 is the action list. And Sean, you're up. First time. Woohoo! We'll go easy on you. So this is the action list and an update on pending submissions that we've made. Is there anything, Sean, that you needed to add?
No, I think the updates are reasonably self-explanatory. The cemetery's draft plan come to the council 23rd Feb, it's the 25th of Feb, and the Sustainable Hamilton plan, we're still getting the report to a stage that it be that we can engage with the sustainability panel.
Okay, Councillor Gallagher.
Yes, just under older person's plan, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, that we have an interesting thing where the youth plan goes straight to this committee, S&P. So at the last meeting of the community forum subcommittee, the trend, the view from that committee, which I'll probably pick up in my report to the next S&P, is that the older person's plan comes straight to the committee of the whole.
Mm-hmm.
And basically we're wanting to sort of, whatever, synchronise so that
Yeah.
we've got consistency. But that's going to be our recommendation, I think. Brendan, is that right from memory? So all we're going to be doing is just, when I do the report, my report, I'll be adding that as a recommendation. So obviously that, just be aware that that's coming as part of my report.
I just want to make a note, or staff, you'll pick it up, that the S&P meeting, or the Wairere Drive, that's got 24th of March, the S&P meeting's been changed from the Thursday to the Tuesday, so anything with the 24th of March is now the 22nd. Can I ask on page...
I've got another
Oh,
question.
sorry, Councillor,
I have
carry on.
another question.
Yep.
I'm sorry, because I haven't been into my local supermarket at the time. The bylaw, just help me update.
Which
That's
one?
all, because that was due to come in place,
Where?
Which one?
Where,
and it's
Councillor?
all happened.
Where,
Which
Councillor?
bylaw are you referring to?
The alcohol. Have I got that wrong?
No, that's not here.
Alcohol control.
The,
Oh, on halfway down on page 212.
Was that a different one?
Hamilton Alcohol Control Bylaw. That's the Steel Park. That's
Oh,
the
sorry.
public park one.
I'm interested in
Not
whole.
the LAP.
Oh, the LAP, sorry.
The LAP
Apologies,
is
another
still
question,
in its
another
appeal
time.
process.
yes.
Yeah.
The
Where
LA
is the LAP at, by the way?
The LAP was publicly notified,
Yeah.
and I think that period of 1 month must be very close to expiring.
Yeah.
So possibly Sean can...
I'm sorry, I've caught you a wee bit side.
Yeah, no, look,
You wouldn't have anticipated the question, but I'm just interested as to where that is at.
From,
and whether-
from memory, I think we publicly notified it last week of January,
Right.
late January, and it's about a 1 month period for anyone to lodge an appeal.
Right.
There's no appeals in it that would come to force on a certain date. If there is appeals, then that day go off to the advisory authority for them to determine the appeal.
Right.
So maybe the best thing is we can give an update through an executive update.
Be
Yeah,
quite,
it would be
even if
good,
you just
actually.
circulate it by email, just to.
We'll do it through an executive update.
Okay, thank you,
That
thank you.
would be good.
I'll move.
Oh, thank you. Oh, it's dinner time, isn't it? Just one, thank you, councillors. Just one question on page 212, right at the top, the community facilities report. Do we have a date that that's expected to come back?
How about a year? Oh, sorry.
You didn't say. Who moved and seconded? Which way round was it?
Moved.
King McPherson, thank you. Do we have a date for that one, Sean?
I don't know. I will have to find out.
Okay.
Not here, December 8th.
And just on, just a correction on the, or addendum on the page 213, on the gambling policies, right down the bottom, it's just been cut off and red, it says other statistics, yada, yada, yada. There are no other corrections is what that update will say. Okay, so that's been moved and seconded. Any debate? All those in favour? Are there any against? That's carried. See, Sean, that was painless, wasn't it?
Very
We'll get you next time. Don't you worry. Right, final item is a resolution to exclude the public.
I'll move.